Welcome to rSlash Today I F'd Up, where OP goes to an adult toy store with her parents. Today I F'd up by making a joke that caused one of my students to realize her dog didn't actually go live on a farm. I'm a secondary computer science teacher. I teach kids aged 10 to 18, so a huge range of physical, mental, and intellectual maturity. One of my favorite groups is my 5th grade intro to game design class. They're always excited about basically anything we do, and they're young enough that they still care about earning the respect of their teacher. I have 2 kids in particular that stand out in the class, Chloe and Lena. Chloe is one of the sweetest kids I've taught. She's always bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, a talented artist who has a lot of compassion for the people around her. She's also a massive space cadet who needs to be constantly brought back on track with whatever's happening around her. Lena is blisteringly intelligent and well accomplished for her age, with a sense of importance that goes along with being a semi-prodigy at age 10. She became a Karen in utero. She comes from a mighty line of Karens and shall one day walk among them as their queen. We spent about a week working in a piece of software that's been problematic for us from the start. Lots of weird server hangups and failed updates because we're in an international school and we can't always connect properly. After 5 class periods of watching them flounder, I decided that I would try something new. I started up with a new software that didn't require an internet connection and had an intro activity. About 5 minutes into the activity, Chloe's attention slowly wandered back from wherever it had gone. Wait, this isn't that other software? Why aren't we going to do that anymore? I said, nope, that project went to live on a farm in Wisconsin. We're doing something new now. Chloe said, before we moved, my dog went to live on a farm in Wisconsin. Oh, It took me a moment, but that was the only opening that Lena needed. Parents say that when your dog dies. Your dog is dead, Chloe. And then came the tears. Today I F'd up by going to an adult toy store with my dad. This happened many years ago, but it's one of my favorite stories. When I was 17, I went to Ireland with my parents. We were there over my birthday, and I decided I want to get my nose pierced to celebrate. My mom and dad asked the hotel concierge where we could get it done, so they recommended a place and off we went. As soon as we walked in the door, we realized that it was an adult toy store. We were surrounded by hardcore fetish gear, toys, and adult DVDs. But a worker greeted us brightly and confirmed that they did indeed do piercings in the back. My parents were permissive and liberal when I was a kid, so they just kind of shrugged, giggled with me, and let the guy lead us through to the back. A heavily tattooed, outrageously attractive woman pierced my nose. And although I didn't yet know that I was a lesbian, I was certainly interested in the way that she apologized for the pain by saying, "Sorry, sugar," in her lovely Irish accent. Piercing complete and a bit woozy, I walked back into the adult toy store to find my parents and spotted my dad standing in front of a wall of dildos. Checking out the dildos, I joked, but to my dismay, the man who turned to face me was not, in fact, my father. The poor random Irish guy took a look at me and said, uncomfortably, "I'm just looking around." Keep in mind that although I'm 17, I'm 4'11" and look to be about 12 years old. So from this guy's perspective, an actual child had just interrupted his sex toy browsing to question him about his behavior. Mortified, I threw up my hands and said the first thing that came to my mind. The most situationally absurd sentence of my life. "Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I thought you were my father." As the man's face contorted in horror, the implication of what I had just said hit me, and I fled. I found my parents and shooed them out of the store. I told them what had just happened, and they laughed all the way back to the hotel. OP, the title of your post had me wanting to call the cops on your dad, but the story actually turned out kinda sweet. Today I F'd up by almost dying. I'm pretty sure sucking dick saved my life though. I almost died Liz Lemon style, choking alone in my apartment. Easily one of the scariest moments ever. I was talking to a friend on the phone and eating a burger. My friend B said something funny and he's pretty talkative. I wanted to get a quick response in, like a couple of words that didn't even matter, something like, "I know, right?" So I swallowed and went to talk. Only no words came out. I wasn't even really coughing. It was lodged solidly in my throat, and the more I struggled, the further down it slid. Slowly. B noticed and asked if I was choking and couldn't respond, so I just kind of coughed into the phone to confirm it. He tried to call 911, but he lived in another state, so that wasn't going to be quick enough. And there's like multiple locked doors for them to get through before they even get to me anyway. I was gonna die! I started not being able to stand and started getting tunnel vision. I had tears and snot streaming down my face into my open mouth and I didn't even care. I shoved my entire hand down my throat and nothing. Remember how I said that I wasn't coughing and it was sitting in my throat? I had to actually make myself cough to move it at all. And then, as I randomly started thinking of irrelevant things, I was losing consciousness and my focus was fading. I remembered this thing that my ex liked when I went down on him. I had learned how to utilize my throat muscles in, interesting ways. So with my last ounce of energy, I manipulated my throat muscles and forced them to shove the food back up. I threw up a golf ball-sized chunk of food right into my hands and stared at it. Why was it so big? Did I not chew at all? Before I threw it away and collected myself. Y'all, I sat there stunned for like 5 minutes while B frantically begged me to tell him that I was okay. I finally burst out laughing in relief and confirmed what was happening. Then I told him what I did to save myself and we both cracked up. But oh my god, man, next time I might not be so lucky. Down in the comments, pretty much every post is talking about the self-Heimlich, so I'm going to teach it to you guys because who knows, it might come in handy one day. Take your right hand and curl your fingers around your thumb. Place your fist, thumb first, against your stomach, below your ribcage and above your belly button. Then, with your free hand, hold your fist. Finally, with a strong, sharp motion, push inward on your chest. If you do it right, then you'll force air out of your lungs and do a sort of sound. Also, if pushing with your fist isn't strong enough, you can slam your fist into a stationary object like a table or chair. Today I effed up by sucking on my waiter's finger. This happened 30 minutes ago, and it's exactly what I get for going out during COVID. So today is my birthday and has been incredibly uneventful. I took the day off of work, but despite that, it's just been a normal day. No friend group gatherings, no gifts, just another day, and I'm totally fine with that. My mom, on the other hand, felt bad that there was no celebration of any kind, so she was insistent that we go to my favorite restaurant, a local Mexican restaurant. I agreed to go for a very early dinner. We get there and we're having a good time, and it was nice to pretend that the world was normal for a moment. I ordered a margarita, they ID'd me, and figured out that it was my birthday. Fast forward to the end of dinner, and I thought I was in the clear from a birthday celebration from the staff. As they bring the bill, they put a big sombrero on my head and started clapping and singing and set a dessert down in front of me. One of the guys had whipped cream on his finger and went in to put it on my nose. Drunk me didn't comprehend that and was very confused. Due to the big sombrero covering my face, he was kind of stumbling trying to find my nose. I thought, oh, I know what I'm supposed to do. And my stupid self sucked the whipped cream off of his finger. I realized immediately after that. No, OP, that is not how you interact with strangers. But it was too late. They picked up the pace of their singing, and the guy ran away right after and hid in the kitchen. The whole restaurant, which granted was like 10 other people, but still stared at me, and my mom couldn't stop laughing. We put my dessert in a doggy bag and left. 23 is off to a great start. Down in the comments, Love Hockey Trish adds this. There's a person behind every policy, and now, we don't do the whipped cream nose thing anymore, belongs to you. Today I effed up by going on a date with an ill-behaved man-child. This happened in 2008, shortly after I got stationed in South Korea. I was a lowly private, albeit a reasonably attractive woman in my early 20s. I was out one night with some friends when a tall, funny, redhead guy who happened to be one of my friend's soldiers asked to take me out to dinner. My friend told me that it was a bad idea. I asked why, but he wouldn't give me the details. My exact words were, "What's the worst that could happen? I get a free meal and we don't click?" As you may have guessed, this was not, in fact, the worst that could happen. The following evening, we were supposed to meet at the taxi stand outside of our post, but he was late. He calls to tell me that he's at the ATM and asks if I have cash for a taxi. Not a great start, but sure, I can spring for a taxi. He gets to the taxi stand and we ask the Korean taxi driver in our mix of Korean and English to take us to the nearby Air Force Base, which houses the only Chili's on the peninsula. Something to the effect of, "Ajishe Osan Kaju Sayo." Sir, take us to Osan, please. We're going through the back roads and I ask what he thinks of Korea so far. He starts going off on a rant about how these people don't even speak English, and I must have looked at him like he had lost his mind. As I open my mouth to speak, a little boy loses his ball and runs into the street to get it. This sets Red off all over again, talking about how these people have no common sense, and just really racist, weird, and out of touch comments. When he finally takes a breath, I remind him that we're in their country, not the other way around, and that everyone's been really respectful, so I'm not sure what his problem was in the first place. He gets mad and puts his headphones on, not saying another word to me on the whole way to Osan. When we finally pull up to the Osan Air Force Base, I lean forward to pay the driver, and the driver says, in perfect English with an American accent, "Thank you, ma'am, that'll be X amount." And I could feel the blood rush to my face. Red does a double take at this man's English and darts out of the cab. I apologize profusely, and the driver reminds me that he speaks English, tells me he spent 10 years in Chicago, and that he knows that I wasn't the one being awful. I tipped him as well as I could, thanked him, and apologized again. We had to take another shorter taxi ride once we got on the base on Chili's. Red remained silent, and not surprisingly, I paid for this one too. Red, who's about 6'2", dressed in baggy clothes, bleach white shoes, pants, t-shirt, and a baseball cap, decides to go to the restroom as soon as we're seated. He comes back, immediately and loudly commenting on everyone staring at him. Trying to lighten the mood, I say it's strange how clear it is which guys are Army and which are Air Force. He asks how I can tell, which is almost funny to me, and I use the phrase pretty boys to describe the Air Force guys, and say the soldiers all look a little tougher. He starts yelling, actually yelling at me that if I like Air Force guys so much, I should go out with one of them. I just stared at him. The server comes and I ask for a water. There's no way I want to be drunk around this dude. He insists that the margaritas are the only reason to come to Chili's, and he orders one for me. The server is a young woman who looks at me nervously, but I just nod to let her know that it's fine. I ordered a buffalo chicken salad. He orders 2 appetizers, beer, and a steak. I had 1 sip of the margarita and let him finish it, on top of the 3 or 4 beers he had. He snaps at the server, sends his food back, and just does everything mean that he could have done. We don't talk much. The server brings the check back and he says to her, "Oh, we'll split it right down the middle," or something very clearly to the effect of, "I'm only paying 50% of that number." She looks at me again and I take the check from her. I am totally done at this point. "Oh, if we're gonna split it, let's split it. These beers are yours, the steak was yours, the appetizers are yours. Technically, the margarita was mine even though you drank it. But I'll take that and my salad, and you, sir, can pay for the rest." The server is just standing there awkwardly staring as I finally raise my voice at this jerk. He opens his mouth to say something and I snap, "What, did I miss something?" And I hand the waitress my cash and he hands her his card. He didn't even tip, but I did. It's worth mentioning that in Korea, tipping off the base is rude, but frankly, this waitress more than earned it. He was totally silent the entire ride back, which, of course, I paid for. I told his supervisor, who was my friend who had warned me how it went down, and apologized for not heeding his warning. Somehow, at physical training the next morning, Red had showed up in the wrong uniform and was smoked quite severely, I heard, but we never spoke again. OP, when that taxi cab driver revealed that he spoke English and Red fled from the cab, you should have just stayed put and said, "Get me out of here." That was rSlash Today I F'd Up, and this is rSlash Puppy Bloopers. He comes back. Hugo. What do you got? Is that for me? He comes back. Hugo. Come on now. He comes back immediately. Dog. Dog.